Hi, my name is Bhupendra and I'm going to be showing you today how to manage the Lonsto digital signage for the queuing system. So first and foremost, we need to find a page that we log into. If we look at the link over here at the top, what we can see is that we have a unique IP address assigned to the machine that has our server. So all we do is you simply copy this URL and just change the IP address and hit enter, and it'll bring us to this page. So to log in, we type in the username of admin and the password of 123. And what this will do is it will bring us to a playlist manager page where we can see that all the different types of content that we have created in the past. So now specifically for MidSussex, what we will do is we will create a new presentation and we will build up the zones so we understand how we can do that. So first and foremost, if we take a look at our three key components, firstly we have an RSS feed which basically displays the queue information. This could include the last 5 or last 10 tickets called, the total number of tickets in the queue, the average waiting time, or even the next 5 to 10 tickets that are to be served. The second zone that we have is our time. This will basically take the time of the PC. We can also have time and date. And finally, we have our main playlist area, which tells the system what to show and what to show in which zone. So first, let's make a copy of this. And what we will call it is a test build of MidSussex. So we create our copy. And as you can see, this test build has not created new elements like these two. We will just use the existing elements in our test build. So to get into our playlist manager, we double click and we can see it's built up of a number of different areas. So let's delete these and create a clean build. Okay, so we have a fresh background here. What we can look at is the dimensions of what is going to be shown on our display. So if we look at properties, and we can see that the test build for MidSussex is full HD, which is 1920 by 1080. You can change the background color if you want, just to maybe be easier on your eyes. What we can now do first and foremost is we need to add a background image. This will help us to identify where we want to show our content in the different zones. So if we extend this, or you can use the width and height pixel and the X and Y to position your content. So we'll call this zone the background, and this would be our bottom layer. So now we've created this zone. What we want to do is we want to pull in our background image. So if we double click into here, we can see that this is our playlist. So for this particular zone, so what we do is we need to upload some content. So if we create a new folder, so we create a new folder and we call it test MidSussex. And we scroll down, we can see now that we have a test MidSussex folder, and whatever we upload to this directory will be displayed over here. So if we hit upload and we hit browse, what we can do is we can search for the file locally in our machine or off of the network or shared folder. So if we go to where our test content is held, and we select our background, hit open and upload. This now brings in our background image. We simply select it and drag it over. There's nothing stopping us having different background images as well, and this is where the time factor comes in. So if we know the total duration of certain playlist zones are 60 seconds, we can have this background for 60 seconds and then flip it over and show a different background with different content in different positions. So let's keep it simple for now. So let's save this, and we can now see that we have our background here. So the second thing we want to do is we want to add in our ticker tape, which is the moving message that scrolls along the bottom. Here I've just added an example so we know what kind of colors we're following. So if we add in a new zone, and what we're going to do is we're going to drag this down using the left mouse button, and we're just going to simply position it where it needs to go. Okay. Don't worry about the size of the font too much because it will auto size itself. within the area. So if we drop that over here, now what we have is our ticker zone. So what we now need to do is label that and call it a ticker. Okay, so now what we want to do is we might want to add in a message. So we'll simply come into here, and what we'll now do is we'll create a new playlist for this particular zone. So we go to events and we select ticker, and we just select it and drag it in. Now we can have a number of different tickers. So let's create a customized ticker to start with. So first and foremost, again, it says it's 6,000 seconds, so we don't want to play it for that long. What we want to do is have a simple ticker that's maybe 20 seconds long. And what we now do is we can double click our ticker, we can type in some text. To make life easier is maybe, prudent that we use Microsoft Word to just help us do our spell check and grammar to ensure there's no errors. So let's just type in into and all we simply do is we select it, copy, and we paste it into our text field here. So now what we want to do is we want to set our background color. Now we can type in a hex code, or we can simply open up our color palette and we can just say we want the background to be white. Now for branding purposes, the text color can be, we can use a hex code for that. And this is something we can enter should we know what that hex code is. However, what we'll do for this purpose is we'll just select a color and we'll hit save. Now that is now saved once we confirm it in the bottom area here, so it will basically tick along. So once we've done that and we're happy with that, what we can do is we can actually tell it of the font size I want you to be. So let's bump this up to 75, and we have a choice of different fonts. So we'll stick to Arial, which is the easiest to read. Now we have our ticker zone ready for us. So where do we get the queue summary and the time from? So if we come out of this page now, we scroll down to the bottom and find our presentation, and we now look for our components. So our first component is going to be time. So if we double click time, it will open up a different content type. This is now called a composer playlist. So this is slightly different to what we do when we're creating zones, and this is very effective when we want to manage like a slide-based type presentation, such as PowerPoint. So if we take a look at this at the moment, what we have is a text field called time. Now to create a time field, all we simply do is I've written time just to tell me this particular field is for time. Now if we look at our object link here, what we have is we have a unique hashtag reference to time. Now if I add in a colon with an SS, it will also display the hour, the minutes, and the seconds. So if we just get rid of this for now, what we can do now is we can actually preview this. So let's have a look at preview, and we can see this is our time. Now if we add in the seconds, we can now test it again to see how that would look. Now that suggests to us that the font size needs changing. So to change that, we just simply highlight our text and we say to it, reduce the size to maybe 80. And we can again preview it and have a test. So it needs to go down a little bit more. Okay. Now this is not centralized, so to make it look a lot better, what we can do is we can add a date underneath. So if we close this preview, let's just resize this field here. Okay. What we can now do is to save time on the format, we could just simply duplicate this text object. By doing that, we can press this button here and it'll duplicate our text object. And we just simply position it. Now what we can write here now is we can say we want it to be the date. And what we will do is we will change the color of this to make it easier to read, and we will make it a lighter shade of gray. So if we now reduce the size of this, we make it 40, what we can do for date is we can do something slightly different. So We punch in our tag of date, and we then have our comma, and we can then say the day is going to be day dash month dash y. So now we can preview this, and we can see that we've got 6th of August 2015. We may not want to show the actual name of the month. We might want to show the number. So we could just use 2 small m's and hit preview, and we can now see that it's got an 8. Most customers prefer the month name being spelled out, so I just leave it like that, and I'll hit save. I'll note down my width is 294 and my height is 135. And this is where we will now use the controls in the playlist to help us size this area. We come out, yes. Okay, so if we double click back into our main content playlist, we can come here, and what we can do is we can add a new zone. Now what we're going to do is, before we move it, we'll give it the size. So our width is going to be 294 and our height is going to be 135. We just now simply drag it and we place it where we want it to go. Just align that properly. Okay. So now what we can do is we can take our content here and show the time. So in the same way we added the ticker and the background, we double click this zone, but now what we're going to do is we're going to look for something called a composer. So now what we do is we look for our composer file, which is the time and date. Let's drag that in and let's hit save. So now we can see the time and date on the bottom right corner. Let's give it its zone tag, layer tag. Okay. Right. Now there's 2 ways we can actually make our own PowerPoint style slides. So the first one is, let's define our content area here. So we'll do an add, we'll just resize this, and what we'll need to do is take a note of the height and width so we know how to display our content in this particular zone, or if it needs resizing, if it's images. So the width on this is 1193 and the height is 881. Okay, so let's come out of this zone. Yes, we do want to save. Okay, so the first and most easiest way to upload the PowerPoint presentation is to simply drag the PowerPoint into the playlist. That's not the best way to do it, because what you will find is that the larger the file gets, the longer it takes to upload, and it will slow down the PC. So we can do it now in a number of different ways. If our PowerPoint contains things like audio, video, if it has images or text content, we could just simply add it in a different fashion. So first and foremost, let's convert our PowerPoint. So how do we convert our PowerPoint into images? I'll simply double click the template that we have. We'll go to File and we go to Save As. Now it's important when we go to Save As, we look at the Save As type. So from here we can then select we want it to be a JPEG format. So we hit Save, and it'll prompt, do you want to convert every slide or the current slide? So we want to do every slide. And it will now tell us where the images actually live. Okay, so if we come out of here, we're now looking at our directory, we can see we've got our slides now converted as JPEG images. Okay, so we can now come back to our playlist manager and we can bring these pictures in. So if we double click into our area and we look for our zone here, which is called zone 1, so we just simply say customer content. Okay, double click into there. Now what we want to do is we want to find our test folder. Okay, so if we go to our test MidSussex, we want to upload these images now into this area, into our content folder. So we go to upload, browse, and we look for our photos, and we then come down, hit open. Okay, and it will bring in every slide. So we then simply just hit upload. Okay, so we now have our slides. So now what we want to do is we want to be able to add our slides into the system. So here we go. We just simply select our first page, look for slide 1, if it exists. There we go, slide 1. Now what we have here is the time to display this particular image. So how would this actually work? So if we just add in some more slides, we just simply drop and drag these in. If we want to show a particular type of content for a longer period of time, we simply come here and we change it. So we might want to make this 20 seconds because we want that information to stand out to the customer. Now, another factor might be is if it's just an image, we may want to change it to a shorter period of time. So rather than keeping it as 10 seconds, we might want to show it for 7 seconds. And then we just simply hit save. Now, if we find that the slides are in the wrong order, all we can simply do is come back in, double click our content zone and just move the images around until we are happy with the order of the slides. And then we just hit save and we'll save our preference. So that's one way of adding in PowerPoint slides. Now say for example you want to also add in maybe a video. Another way to add in a video would be to double click here and we can scroll all the way to the back, and what we can now do is we can just find some dummy content here. So if we look for a video, we can drag that in, and by default it will bring in the video time. So we can just simply drag that over and we'll put that as our first piece of content, then it will be followed by some slides. So we hit save and we can now see that the video has resized itself. That's why it's important for us to make a note of the height and the width of the content area, so we can use another style of content distribution to actually make it look nicer. So if we come out of this and we'll look at the second way in terms of how we can add different types of content into a different area to make it look a lot cleaner. And this is where we use the composer. So if we go back to our time and date, all we do is we make a copy of this, and what we'll call this now is we'll call this our customer content. And we create that copy. So now we must remember that this area needs to be the same size as the main playlist screen. So in order to do that, what we simply do is we select this content because we're not going to need this, and we delete that object from the area, and we do the same with date. So now where we had our zone size, we just simply make the width 1194 and we make the height 881, and we apply our page dimensions. You can see now the size is changed. So what we can now do is we can add a video. So by simply selecting add a video, I'm going to go to my uploader and I just simply drag my video in. And now I can resize my video and place it where I need it to go. Okay. Right. Now to make it look like a video, what we can do is we can change the page color and make it black. So it's got the cinema bar lines on it. Or we can change the video ratio to 4:3, but this is 16:9, so we'll leave it as it is. Okay, right. So now that's our first slide. Now the page duration for this is going to be 30 seconds. And now what we want to do is we want to add a new page, and this is where we can maybe place an image. So what we can now do is for our new page, we might want it to only play for 5 seconds. So what we can now do is we can add in an image. We can look for an image. We can go to our folder and we can then select our first slide and just drop that in and resize it. And we can create another page, create another image for maybe another 5 seconds. So let's delete this. And this time we might want to use a poster. And the final page, what we'll do is we'll create a new page, and we might want to give it a different background color. So we might want to make it our corporate green. And what we may want to do is we may want to add text. So we can add some text in. So let's just say, I don't know, special announcement. Okay. So we simply come here, we choose a font color. Let's select white, make it bigger, and let's make this stand out a little bit. And let's just increase the font size. We can only go up to 120. And let's just make sure that is central aligned. Okay, right. So with a darker background and a white color choice, it may stand out. In actual fact, it may stand out a little bit too much. So let's change our page color and let's change that back to white. And we'll change our actual font color to the corporate green, which is maybe easier on the eye for us to read. Okay, right, there we go. So now what we can do is we can go back and we can now preview our content before we actually upload it to our content zone. Okay, so now let's add this in to our content zone. Okay, right. So let's go back. Let's look at our test build, and we can now see we've got a new element which is called customer content. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to double click into here and get rid of all of our images, and we're going to add in a composer. And this composer is going to be our customer content, and automatically it's 45 seconds because that's how long the composer is. There's nothing stopping you from going back and adding in other content that you have. So if we take a look at the test content, we can just simply add in more slides. If you have a larger video format you want to add in, you can do it that way as well. So let's find another video and let's drag that in. So, you know, there's many different ways on how we can set up the content, but it's important to understand is what is easiest for us to do. Okay. Now, finally, what we want to do is want to add in our Q summary zone. Okay, so let's see how that actually works. So if we come to our MidSussex RSS feeds, we can double click into here. And it's important that we also, again, make a note of the width and height of this particular zone. So 651 width and 683 height. Okay, right. So what we have here at the moment is we've got 4 labels, and they're called Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4. Now, this is not going to display our RSS feed unless we link it in with a hashtag reference as we did with the time and date. So what do we look at here? So this is the folder location of where the information is being read from on the server. So our call forward application will create the RSS feed and place it into the right directory. The directory it's currently stored in would be, if we come to our C drive, and you can find this information on the actual PC that has the server player server on it. And if we can see here, we've got a number of different options here. We've got P1, and this is basically showing us the next set of tickets that are going to be in the queue and the total number of tickets in the queue. And then we've got our queue summaries, which is Q1, what's the summary for that, up to 15 tickets, and then Q2, so on and so forth. We can also have the average waiting time per queue. So there's a number of different types of content that we can actually have. Why is this important? It's important for us to understand that if we're having multiple queues and we're doing a test environment, we want to make sure that the information that's in this folder is accurate to what we have being displayed on the screen. It just makes life easier for us when we're playing around with a new style of presentation. So what we're going to be looking at is line 0 to line 7, and this is just a summary element. It has no cues on it. Okay, so if we look at the Q1 here, what we see here is our line tag here is line 0.xml. Why is this important? Because this will show the last number that was called. If we look at Q2, we can see that it's going to be line 1.xml, which is the second to last number that was called, line 2, line 3, so on and so forth. There's nothing stopping us from having more tickets in our summary list, and the easiest way for us to do that is if we simply select this, we simplify, we decrease the height of the font and we drag it up. We then take Q number 2, do the same, let's drag this field up, and let's change the font size again. Okay. Now, to be consistent, it's important that we make sure the height of these different zones are the same. So for this one, let's round it off to 95 and apply. 95, apply. Okay. So what we then want to do is we want to align them so that they will look central. So our X position, which is offset from the left of the screen, is 15. We change that to 15, and you can see straight away that these boxes will line up to their correct positions. Okay, so everything looks central and looks a lot cleaner. What we then want to do is we want to space this out, right? So what we can do is we can just simply look at it. If it doesn't look right, nope. So let's change our Y to maybe 280, and it'll bring it up. So we'll need a little bit more, change that to 270. Okay, so it looks a lot closer. So we're probably going to be looking at about 260 on this. And then for this one, we're going to be looking at about 380, nope, 300. Okay, so 380. Right. Now, what we want to do is rather than, creating a new object and going through the longness of having to, type in the object link and everything, to make life easier, we'll just simply duplicate this element. So we select it, we duplicate the text box, we position it where we want it to go, we put in our X coordinate of 15, and we change the label from Q4 to Q5. So this is going to be the 5th ticket line, and we'll change our object here from 3 to 4, right? So we hit save. Now what we can also do again is we can preview this, and if we've got ticket information on our machine, we'll be able to see that this is what the ticket will look like. Okay. Right. Okay, don't know why that didn't work. Let's try it again. Okay, it's not having it. Alright, anyhow, come out of this. Okay, so now we go back to our final element to add into our playlist. And what we do is we create another final zone, and this time we're going to enter in the size of the composer, which was width of 651 by height of 683. Okay, and we just simply position it, and we need to bring it across a couple of pixels. Okay, right, so now we're happy with that. We just simply bring it down a little bit. Okay, so now we want to add in our final element, which is the ticket summary. So if we double click into our content zone here, we select again the composers of where we created this, and we select this and drag it in, and we hit save. Now finally what we do is we exit and we do yes. That is how we create a presentation in the simplest format. Once we're happy with the presentation and the changes that have been made, we have to publish them. So every time we change something in any of the composers or the actual presentation. It might just be the time of how long certain content can play. We have to make a publish. So if we do a publish, we do a publish all, which means that whatever element is interconnected into this particular thing will pick up the changes as well. So now finally what we want to do is we want to play this presentation. So if we hit the play button here, we can now see that our test build presentation is going to be the one that's going to be active. That's represented by here a green light. So now what we'll do is we'll minimize this and we'll activate our player software. Now in your instance, you will have the player running on the box already. So it will take its time to download the information. The larger the files, the longer it will take for it to download and then publish onto the screen. So let's have a look here and see if we're using the existing or the new style. Okay, so as you can see, this is the old style presentation that we used as part of our training exercise. Okay, here come the changes. Okay, so what we can see here is that our time and day element is not being set properly, so we might need to just extend this zone out. So to make our final change, that's what we need to do. So if we go back into our playlist manager and we go to our test build, and all we simply do is increase the size of this particular zone. So if we find the time and date, there we go. Just bring that across. We'll do a publish, and then the screen will pick up the updated information, and that's basically it, guys. Play around with it, see how you get on. Any questions, just give us a call.